Welcome to the Career Coven, the podcast for serious careers with unserious chat. I'm Bec, a coach, corporate citizen, and recovering perfectionist.
And I'm Annie, a workaholic, learning boundaries fairly slowly. Each episode, we unpack career challenges and workplace wisdom through honest conversations, practical tools, and a healthy dose of real talk, so you can thrive on your own terms. Shall we get into it?
Lovely. How are you today, Annie? What's been going on?
What's been going on today? Well, we exchanged some supplement notes this morning, and true to form, my new collagen
I've seen this one.
Yep, I went for Ancient and Brave. They don't sponsor us, but they'd be welcome to.
Is this the one that's mixed with cacao?
No, this is tasteless, and this is the one that like Davina McCall uses.
Okay.
And I think because I work in menopause and I spend a huge amount of time looking at menopause content, I have literally just started to buy like a load of menopause brands. I bought the Skin and Me. Again, they don't sponsor us. They absolutely can. But I bought the Skin and Me product for older women, which I think is like, yeah, let's go for radiance, firmness, fine lines and dark spots. I think I've got to that age.
Fantastic. I really appreciated your guidance on women's health supplements. You know, I feel like postpartum, my hormones were all over the place, and I frankly have been quite intellectually lazy about hormones. So it's a whole new world of excitement. Yeah, that's been quite exciting. I decided I could be someone who has a ritual warm drink. That's what I decided this week. Other than coffee, as I told you just before we started recording, I had 6 shots today, and then only realised that when I was feeling awful at 6 o'clock and was like, I'm gonna die. And then I was like, oh, it's because I had so much coffee. So that's really
fun. Night's sleep for you, I think. Deep night's sleep.
I joined a cult today.
What sort of cult?
Well, I actually didn't join it today. I've been a member for a while now. Soul Cycle. I also don't sponsor us.
But welcome to.
But welcome to as well. It's a cult that I never thought I would join, and a cult where I kind of didn't understand it, and I sort of in my head kind of made fun of everyone who was really into it, and then I was happy as a fucking dog clapping around in my spin class today. And I was like, I'm there, I'm in the cult.
You were clapping. Interesting.
Yeah.
I can see you clapping, but I couldn't see you clapping on a bike for some reason. I've seen you after boxing, so I know you do get a lot of hype. You get an exercise buzz. But I thought that was also slightly to do with aggression. You know, I thought it was like the combo of like getting it out and the exercise, whereas, you know, it's Soul Cycle as well.
It is Soul Cycle. I mean, they played Spice Girls today, so like it was great. Shall we get into today's topic, which is on networking?
Yeah, networking. It's not a word I like. I'm going to just start there. It's not a word that I like, and it's not a thing that comes naturally to me, but I'm very much looking forward to talking about it with you.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of hate networking is what I've always told myself. And then I think I've been on this sort of pathway of redefining it in my head and then being like, maybe I've been doing it all along, just in a different way.
Yeah, for sure. Let's definitely get into that, because that's surely true.
Maybe. We'll see. Okay, so what did the experts say? What do we know?
Yeah, I think we both came across an expert called Kelly Hoey. That's what I'm going to say is her name. And she wrote a book called Build Your Dream Network. And I think what was interesting about that book for me is that she really made networking very deliberate, very strategic, and like quite goals based, which is probably something that I would never naturally do. Like I would love to be a person, and maybe I was when I was a founder and I had to be more strategic, but I'd love to be a person that prepped for networking properly and was like, there's 3 people I know are going to be in this room that I want to meet, and then like just went and did it. Like I would aspire to be that person, but I'm not it. However, she was very strongly pro, you know, making sure that you know what you want, that there are clear goals around your networking. Something that really resonated with me was that she said you should kind of give before you receive. And I think that's something that kind of rings true. But also she was very clear that if you want to build and maintain a great network, that's going to take work, and you need to kind of invest in your network and your relationships. which I think we will probably get into in more depth.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I'm less so now, but at the start of my career, I was like crushingly introverted. And I felt like at networking events or like just places where you come across a lot of people, I felt like I had to kind of wear a mask of like wanting to be with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds really harsh, but I am happy as a pig in shit by myself. So
Yeah.
being in a room full of strangers feels quite daunting, and I really have to G myself up to go into those. But I think that's probably true of a lot of people, right?
For sure. I mean, definitely true. Just definitely true for me. What's interesting about that from my perception of you is I wouldn't have thought that, because you are very, very personable. But I think that that's like such a common misconception with networking, is that people who are naturally quite good at it find it easy internally. And I definitely do not think that's true. Like, I see it in my partner, who is actually very, very shy, but he's quite good at networking because he is very strategic, very much plans things, and is like very sweet in a personable way, but he finds it very energy draining.
Mm.
And I think, yeah, I wouldn't have imagined that it was something that you had to gear yourself up for, because having seen you at events with lots of people, you're very kind of gregarious, and it looks like it all comes easily. But I think that is a very, very common thing.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, I like socializing with people I like socializing with. I just don't like strangers. Stranger danger, like, cut me real deep and really impacted my ability to socialize. But I am whenever I see someone I am genuinely happy to see, that doesn't feel high effort. But I think it's more just, I am just awful at small talk. Like, you run out of the weather, you've run out of everything. And that is my like social anxiety, being like, well, what the fuck else are we going to talk about? But
I've got
actually, I
yeah.
got better at it. Are you better at it now? I think it gets
No,
easier.
no, I've got worse at it. I've
Oh,
got worse at it. I realized that recently when like I went to a dinner party with people. I guess I did know them, but I didn't know them that well, and definitely still found like it's kind of like, are we going to make adult friends? And I quite want to make adult friends with this group of people, but I was still quite nervous. And then one of them asked me just like a really mundane question, and I just honestly told them all of my life trauma, and it was like stunned silence, and you could see Anders was sitting there like, no, honestly, what the fuck just happened? Yeah, it's killed the friendship. It's killed it. And I know it was that moment. I know it was. And I was like, God, you've got no filter anymore. I just don't know what appropriate small talk is. So I think I used to be quite like, oh, do you have any siblings? But I don't do that anymore. I just go straight into deep, deep trauma. And if someone doesn't have any, I just move on to the next.
it's not that interesting.
It's not that interesting.
I mean, I think there's like, when I have sort of observed people who I thought are really good at networking, and what they are really good at doing is constantly having a good question to ask. And I
Yes.
think what is kind of interesting, right, doing my coaching course, like, coaching is all about asking good questions and listening, but
Mm,
the best questions that you ask as a coach are not ones where you've like preloaded it in your brain.
yeah.
It's when you're like deeply, deeply listening and responding. So actually, I think I've changed my view on that. When I was sort of doing more networking, I would always preload the next question in my brain. But as soon as you start doing that, you're actually not listening.
Just about to say, yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I've sort of moved on from that as a kind of networking style.
Okay,
I
so
think
who else did you come across?
Herminia Ibarra has also come up on this podcast already this season. And her kind of position on this, which I think is a really interesting one, is bridging your current self and your future self through networking. So I suppose it's about like the building your network of who you're aspiring to be, or the area that you're aspiring to move into. And I think with that lens on it, it feels like much more authentic.
Mm,
I think even like this year, my network has increased in like particular functions. Like, I have a bigger network of coaches, I
yeah,
have a bigger network of mums. I'm very sure it's going to be really important to me to have a bigger network of like career mums, so I have people
yeah,
to learn from. So
yeah,
actually, this totally makes sense to me, that kind of trajectory of yourself and your networking in a more authentic way. I like that.
yeah. I like that too. And that feels like you can, that there's not one size fits all approach to networking, right? That you can find your networking channels that work for you and your style rather than sort of forcing yourself. I think when you were like, let's do an episode on networking, I was thinking like that word conjures up in my brain, like really big events and being someone who can like work a room.
Mm.
Well, I can't work a room. I just leave.
I will just toddle over to the bar and be like, even if I haven't finished a drink, I'll be like, I will have another Prosecco. Thank you so much.
Well, if I'm in a really big room of people and I know one person, I just cling on like a little baby.
Sure.
Yeah.
Little barnacle at the
Yeah.
networking event. Yeah,
Like,
me
I'll
too.
never leave your side. Or if I don't know anyone, I'll stay for like 15 minutes, talk to no one, and then I'll just leave. Like, that's not an effective channel for me. That, like, large
Yeah.
groups on my own, it's just not. But I think, like, what's nice about Herminia Ibarra's take is that, like, that's not what it is for her. Like, you can make it your own, and it doesn't have to be kind of forced and fake.
Yeah, and I went to an event like was it a few weeks ago probably. And when I say I went to an event, like this is the only professional event I've attended during mat leave, but also in an extremely long time. Like even pre-mat, like I stopped going to professional events. I was just like I don't know, I actually just didn't really see the point.
Mm.
And this one was really good. It was for alumni of women who had won the same award. It was an award I won like literally maybe a decade ago.
Wow.
And I was totally disengaged as an alumni, and they sent a cool email and it was hosted at a cool location, and the topic looked really interesting. It was on the power of profile. And
Nice.
I was like, sure, I'll go. And then it turned out a lot to be about networking, and I was like, fuck me. And then in the middle like of the agenda, she's like, right, now everyone stand up and talk to the person next to you for 30 seconds and then connect on LinkedIn and then spin around and go and find someone else and do that. And like I literally did that like 4 times, and I was like, oh my, this is literally my worst nightmare. But it turned out to be fine. And I suppose that's what it's all about, right? Like I think we fear it a lot more than it is just totally fine.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, we forget that probably everyone in the room feels like that. Like, I
Mm.
think there's very, very few people who truly enjoy like going to a large gathering of people that they don't really know and talking all night. Like, I just don't know many people that would be like, that's my idea of fun. I do know some, like they do exist, but it's not like a huge number. And I don't think it's any women I know. Like,
Mm.
and yeah, so I think you can kind of enjoy it a bit more if you remember that actually everyone there sort of maybe feels a bit like you.
Yeah. And I actually felt like really out of practice
Yeah.
going back to one. And actually it felt totally fine. But I also learned, maybe you know this, maybe everyone listening knows this and I don't, but on the LinkedIn app, you have a QR code that makes like finding you or you finding someone super easy. And I was like, wow, this is very advanced from the days of like
Business
2010 when I had
cards.
a stupid business card which just said student.
Oh,
What
business
is the point?
cards. I don't know what I would actually do if someone handed me a business card nowadays. I'd be like, I'd get the ick. I'd get the professional ick. But I actually, in fairness, I actually didn't know that about LinkedIn. That is a useful tip. And I consider myself to be quite good at LinkedIn, famously. It's my only channel, as I will tell everyone in my team. It's my only channel.
LinkedIn is super interesting for networking, right? Like, and I remember a friend of mine who is like really good at profile building. I was like, look at my LinkedIn, just tell me what I need to do. And she's like, we just need to get more followers. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, I need you to have 2,000 connections by Easter. And this was in like December. And I was like,
It was last year.
oh my God. And then I told you that I was doing it and you did it in about 10 minutes. So tell us all about how successful you are on LinkedIn, Annie. What are the trade secrets to getting those followers, to connecting? Like what's your jam?
Well, I think that I just have a niche. right? And I have a small niche, but it's a niche that women are interested in, which is women's health. And so I think that it's like I'm not that consistent. I think I went through a phase of being quite consistent around when we first launched the podcast, and then it's like fallen off a miserable cliff of just grossness. But I think I can, like, when I'm in the mood, I can like rile people up. Do you know what I mean? It's like I can do a post that's a bit like things aren't good enough. And mostly for women. I don't think I've ever done a things aren't good enough for men, but I'll think about
Never
whether,
say never.
yeah, I'll think about whether there could be a post that would.
I've seen one. It's got lots of backing behind it. It's about how like young boys are like the
The
generation being
manosphere.
left behind.
The
Yeah.
manosphere. Yeah.
I think it's the boyosphere, the teen boyosphere. Yeah, I've
Interesting.
seen that one around. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is something I am very worried about and generally very interested in. I don't think it's my brand though. My brand is like, let's talk about the failure of healthcare for women consistently from a different angle, mostly women over 40, but sometimes younger women. And so I think if you repeatedly post about the same thing, but also kind of try and rile people up a bit, like I just think you've got to say something, haven't you? There's a lot of LinkedIn that's just like, oh, I got a bike to work this morning. It's like, God, that's like so Facebook 2005 or whatever. That's like early days of when you were just updating your friends in public. Like, come
So
on.
embarrassing.
So embarrassing. Whereas I think you've got LinkedIn's quite noisy nowadays. It's like I think it's quite the Wild West. I don't know if it's professional or personal anymore. It's like quite an interesting platform from that perspective. But yeah, I think you've got to say something. But I think my view is my LinkedIn, I've just very consistently only talked about women. And obviously the podcast is aimed at women, but our male listeners, we are very, very grateful. And you're
Love you
very, very
too.
welcome here. You're very, very welcome here because everyone should learn. But it's all quite consistent. Whereas I think if I posted about wildlife, I'd get nothing from that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I only ever post on LinkedIn when I want something, which
Actually, the opposite of what these experts advise. Give first, get after. And you're like, I just request. I make requests.
I mean, yeah, you're right. This is very like Adam Grant give and take failure 101. I only go on LinkedIn to be like, hey, does anyone know how to answer this question? So maybe I'm just Facebook 2010ing. I don't know. Maybe
No,
I've
that's not Facebook 2010, I don't think. No.
I'm just like, what do you think about this topic? Or, quite often just asking questions that we're going to talk about on the pod and just getting a sense check on vibes. I don't think I very often, if ever, express a point of view on something other than probably the patriarchy on International Women's Day. How much we have to go, gender pay gap. Those are the kind of things I'll happily pick a fight about. But yeah, okay. But let's talk about LinkedIn from a perspective of like you building your own network. Like, are you just like sliding into people's DMs being like, hey, I think you're cool? Or like,
Can you imagine me doing that? No. No, I would say in all seriousness, like I don't, so I am introverted, more introverted than people think anyway. And I don't have any time ever. I don't go to any events anymore. I have no interest in that because I just don't want to at the moment. So therefore, I only really build my network through LinkedIn. And I think there's a couple of things I do. Like, I guess when I took a more structured look at what networking is, and one of the things is like maintaining your connections, the connections that you have. So I think the basis of all of my network, people I have worked with, and then the extended audience of people I have directly worked with. So therefore, what I do on LinkedIn, I hope quite well to maintain my network is that I react to people's content. Like if they post something, I'll be like, yeah, amazing. This is so great. And I'll share it. Or I will comment on when people comment on my stuff, I will comment back, I will engage with them. So I think I subconsciously maintain my working relationships from people that I no longer work with through LinkedIn, through liking stuff, through commenting. Occasionally I will then, WhatsApp and be like, saw this on LinkedIn, like that's amazing, well done. But like that's what I think I do a lot of in terms of maintaining my network. With growing my network on LinkedIn, a lot of that is frankly hiring. Like the only time I really, not the only, that makes me sound a bit calculating, but mostly the only time I would direct message someone is if I want you to work for me. And then I'll send it like, no pressure, but would you want to meet me? And, go, it's informal, but really it's the first round of a process that they don't know they're in. So that's one way. I think that I do use LinkedIn DMs again to like, if someone, is a good example of like someone I used to work with at Carnell Farrow, which was in consulting. So that was like over 10 years ago. And then someone I used to work with at Alva have just announced like a big healthcare project together. And it is like really amazing. And so I like messaged them together to be like, just so great, like what you've done, like congrats. And that doesn't take me much time, but it's a way for me to say like, I'm cheering you on. And, I'm still following like what you're doing. And I'm kind of keeping in touch without it being too high effort for me at a time when unfortunately I don't have like that much time. So that's how I use
that
it.
all totally makes sense. I am not on LinkedIn enough to see the updates that people do to then like and comment them. But I also like go onto LinkedIn and I'm like, God, there's a whole load of absolute drivel here. And then I close it quite quickly. So maybe I just need to prune out. I get like follow requests, or like, I don't even know what you call it. I'm using the wrong words. Adding a connection. People request to add me and I'm like, I don't know who you are. And then,
But you must accept them.
do you?
Of course, that's your audience. I accept everyone unless it like looks like someone pretty weird.
Yeah, although they always want to sell me shit. And then my DMs are literally overflowing with people trying to sell me shit. And I'm like, guys, I am the last person you should be selling to. And I find it, the whole thing, and that's why my problem with LinkedIn is that if someone genuinely messages me to maintain and cultivate our relationship, I will absolutely miss it. And then I will just look like a dick because I have full LinkedIn ick.
Yeah.
But that's my improvement area, I guess. At some point, it's just not a priority for me right now. Maybe it will be in the future. Maybe
Look,
it won't.
you're on other platforms. You're on Instagram. You have everyone. I think everyone's got their platform that they prefer. But when I say like I maintain my relationships or my work relationships on LinkedIn, like I'm on LinkedIn every day. Yeah. You're like, that was such a like cringe reaction. But I'm not on Instagram every day. I don't use Instagram. Whereas I don't know why, but I just use LinkedIn. And I think it's just a really sad part of my personality. But that's my platform. I don't use Facebook. I don't have a Facebook account. I don't use TikTok. I use LinkedIn. And that's why
I don't use.
so much useless knowledge in this head of mine.
I think we're maybe too old for TikTok. Maybe not. I don't know. Okay, look, this has been a helpful rounding off of LinkedIn.
Let's not spend any more time here.
When you were talking about it, it did make me think that this is like the type of networking for the generation of people who grew up on MSN. I was like, okay,
yeah.
Maybe this is like our generation just moving into being kind of, the comfortable place we've always been in.
I mean, how do you maintain your network? Like, what is your approach to networking? Because you do have a very strong network.
I'd say like I am definitely more fewer and deeper than broader. And a really good example this morning, I caught up with someone who I first worked with at The Guardian. Her name is Penny Jones. She's amazing. I'm going to link her website in the feed because she does lots of career stuff for women and she's a coach. And I also worked with her at Condé Nast coincidentally later. And, I haven't seen her for 2 years. And I'd say like that's the frequency of which we like see each other in person, but we message, bits and pieces. I've referred clients to her. I've helped one of her clients out with something. and we went for a cold water swim. And like that to me is like a good example of like, but like I also would never refer to Penny as like networking. Penny is just like my friend
She's your friend.
who happens to have been my colleague at some point.
But that
So
was one of my questions, or like that's one of the questions I had as I pondered networking is like, what is the difference between building a network and friendships? Like, is there a difference?
yeah, so at the event that I went to, the one that I was talking about earlier, she was talking the speaker. Her name is Vanessa Vallely. She was really cool, actually. Like I was like, how didn't I engage with this content for a decade? But she was very cool. She gave a great thing, but she was talking in her speech about basically it's not networking, it's just relationship building, and
Mm,
it's just making connections and connecting with people. And sometimes you don't necessarily know when or what it is that you like could find useful. It's just that like this is someone that you work with. And I suppose for me the difference is like I will happily maintain and cultivate a connection based on, frankly, just like how much I like them
yeah.
and like the chemistry that I have with them. And I just won't hang out with people who don't really fit that criteria, whether I want something from them or not. Like that's just not. And I suppose I also treat people who reach out to me with that same lens, which maybe makes me feel a bit standoffish to others if they haven't made the cut.
But I think you do have to be realistic with networking. Like, what is it, Dunbar's number? You can only maintain so many active relationships.
100?
I thought it
Is
was
it 100?
I thought it was 150, but it
Or
might.
maybe, yeah. I don't know. Sure. I believe you.
But yeah, I think that you have to kind of preserve your energy. And I would say fewer deeper is probably better than loads of irrelevant shallow ones. Would we say the experts agree?
No.
Right, okay. Okay.
I like the bit that like I am really pants at, and the bit that you were talking about at the start is like I need to make this connection because there is strategic value in making it, and I have just never ever done that, and I don't know if I should. I don't know. That feels quite inauthentic to me. But what do you think?
Just recovering from a small bout of the hiccups, if you must know. But if it lets me get it out without a hiccup.
So I think like one person who it's always good to have in your network is to have a connector who's the person who can connect you to other people. And like these are the people who are typically like extroverted, not necessarily, but they know a lot of people, they know what they're up to, they can hook you up with other people. I think I definitely wouldn't classify myself as a connector, but I do think knowing a connector is really helpful. The other thing I would say is that networking when you're introverted, like to survive and run that in a big group, I don't even know if I would recommend going to big group networking if you're introverted. It's just not even something I would do. So I can't hand on heart say that's a good idea. But smaller groups, more organic, greater depth of conversation, I would say is definitely a good kind of approach for people who feel more introverted. Like, you know, if I were thinking about if I had to hang out with like 20 strangers for 2 hours, I think my ideal setting would probably be like over dinner and they're all women. um, and and there might be some, you know, I actually at work for a couple of years had run a dinner on International Women's Day, and it was the first time that like 40 or so women in our same area all came together, and everyone was split up, and we had a couple of conversation prompts. But I had such a good night, and I think that's quite a nice example of how you can network, but in a slightly more intimate way, which I feel like is probably more up my street. But how do
Yeah.
you manage kind of social overload? Do you just MSN DM?
It's just all LinkedIn for me. I think I've made that pretty clear. No, I think my preference would be what you've described. You know, a small group of like fun people with something in common to like talk about. I'm much more likely to go to that kind of small, intimate event than I am to go to like a large topic based event.
Mm.
I would really say that, like, unless I am on very good form and like pretty well rested, I really just am not good in large group events. So they are therefore a waste of my time. Like I remember going to one in the Houses of Parliament like earlier this year, and it was about women's health, and it should have just been fine. You know, it should have been easy, but I was just so tired when I got there, and I was like standing in this room of people, and I was thinking, you know, I need to meet this insurance company. Like that's who I really want to meet. I did do some preparation, and I knew who I wanted to meet, and I just sort of froze up, and it just wasn't worth it. So I think I have to almost therefore go to things on the fly. It's almost like on the day I'll sort of know if I'm invited to something, and obviously, you know, if it's something that needs an RSVP, that's different. But if I like know that I'm invited to something, but then I decide based on whether I feel like I'm going to get something productive from it. But if I'm completely exhausted, I actually just don't go.
Yeah. This is a good, I mean, segue into the other some of the other things that we'd spoken about talking about today. Networking when burnt out, I think, is quite an interesting topic.
Mm.
Like there is value in there being, I think when you're burnt out, I certainly would be less likely to do networking. But I would, if we just reframe that slightly, connecting with other people when you're burnt out, I think can actually be really helpful because they can come up with fresh eyes, they can sort of help guide you. And when you're burnt out, I would say you have a stronger impetus for change, and people sort of love to be on a change journey.
Mm.
And to kind of help you at an inflection point. So it sounds like weird advice, but I actually think networking when burnt out could be really good.
That is interesting advice. It's definitely not what I thought you were going to say. I thought we were just going to say no to that. I thought this was just going to be a don't do it. It's too tiring. But
I think
you're not wrong. You're not wrong that like one of the bits of advice from our burnout episode, right, was like social connections are really important, and actually like when you feel up to it, meeting other people is a really good way to support the recovery from burnout. So you're right, basically. I just didn't expect it. I think I think when I was burnt out, the thing that I struggled with was like I wouldn't have necessarily been able to connect because I was almost seeing myself in the third person and therefore not really able to listen. However, I would also say that one of the key drivers of my burnout was how isolated I felt.
Mm.
So I think you are right, but it's just, I'm not a big fan of people kind of forcing themselves into
Yeah.
networking situations if they aren't okay. Because I don't know how much you can connect or build a connection. And that's what this is really, isn't it? It's about building some kind of connection that you want to then maintain.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's right. Yeah. Maybe let me clarify then. It's probably about reconnecting with someone who you feel
Mm.
kind of close enough to, could be someone on your board or whatever. But
Yeah.
reconnecting, I think, is really important. Networking when overbooked, I sort of feel really strongly that like we all need to stop this expectation of going for a coffee with people. As someone who's had 6 shots today, but also I think it puts quite a lot of pressure on kind of the length and or frequency or that kind of thing. And actually having sort of different touch points at different, as you say, like just pinging them a message saying well done, or like I saw this article and I thought of you. I
Mm.
think those are all just lighter touch ways to cultivate a connection without having to see people because everyone's really busy, right? Like
Mm.
that's nuts. I mean, like today is the example again. Like I went cold water swimming with Penny, and we were going to go for a coffee, and then I was like, Penny, I know you really like cold water swimming. Can you take me to the
That's
place that
so
you normally go
nice.
to?
Yeah.
And like, I mean, there wasn't much swimming done, to be fair, but it's more like paddling around,
Chat.
chat, paddle, paddle, paddle. But like that actually made it like so fun, and I think there's a lot to be said for like doing things together. I don't think I would quite like necessarily go exercising as a way of networking,
It's a very
generally.
specific type of relationship that I think allows you to kind of run with someone and feel that it's
Never.
productive. I do think it exists. I just don't have anyone that comes to mind.
I mean,
And
if I just go on, if you just think about like 10 people running and talking about business, in my head, they're all bald men.
yeah, they're all bros.
Yeah.
That's
They all have
for
a
sure.
gilet.
Yeah,
Or equally, they're just forming a peloton and cycling to Brighton on a Saturday morning. You
but
know,
that's
that,
I don't know those people.
no, neither do I. But
And I don't know if it's too much of a sassy generalization to say I don't want to know them. But I think it's probably near close to true. We
yes,
digress.
we
Okay.
digress. How would you fit people in when you feel overbooked?
When I
If
feel
you, if you
overbooked,
do.
I was literally in my head as you asked me this question, I was thinking, well, I just wouldn't fit them in. I just wouldn't
Yeah.
fit them in. I would just cancel something to make space for them. Or yeah, like I like, for me, what works is a breakfast. Like
Mm,
I like a workday breakfast pretty early, like an 8 a.m. because then it's like you get to see someone, love it, start the day, fine. You're full of food, had a nice coffee, you've seen someone you like, but your whole day is not out of sync. That's what works
mm,
best for me. And I think if I'm really busy and I get a message from someone who I care about that is effectively them saying, like, I need your help, I will say breakfast.
mm,
Like it's a manageable way for me to fit it all in. And that's because I have no boundaries with my work day. So
mm.
it's not effective for me to say, oh, do you want to do dinner or drinks? And I don't like to drink on weekdays, with a few exceptions, with the odd exception. But I don't generally drink, definitely Monday to Wednesday. And that's such a good kind of rollback. I don't drink much. I actually just don't drink Monday to Wednesday. But yeah, so that works for me even when I'm really busy. But to be honest, if I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I just don't fit them in. I
Yeah.
don't, I will do a virtual. I do like a virtual chat, but that does then make it, I think, quite professional. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? It's like, oh, okay, you needed to talk to me about the fact that you want a new job. Here's my half an hour I will give you about that new job.
Yeah, but I also think that's okay, right? Because you're helping someone out and like that's what you have available to offer. And I actually think that's really generous. I had this a lot actually when I put a call out on LinkedIn about if anyone was looking for a coach, and I'd had quite a few people who, for whatever reason, like that didn't work out, but they still wanted to ask me questions, and I just didn't have the capacity to kind of devote a lot of time to these people. But I basically said, like, either leave me a voice note on WhatsApp and I'll get back to you with a voice note if you can't schedule a call. I really like that as a kind of,
Mm,
that can be, I
yeah,
mean, voice notes very rarely go over 10 minutes, I would say.
they probably shouldn't.
No, I think if you're 10 minutes, that's a call. And also, like, just saying, I'm so sorry, I don't have time for a call, but pop your questions in an email. I might not get back to you straight away, but I promise I will.
Yeah.
And that for me is like a way of kind of keeping it manageable in terms of diary time, which is the crunch point for everyone, right? Like everyone is really busy
Yeah.
and every minute has an opportunity cost somewhere else. So I guess if I was hoping for something from someone else, I could ask them the same thing. Like when I was researching coaching courses, I reached out to like 5 people. I'd say that's actually one of the only times I've used my network to kind of directly, specifically ask about things. And people are really happy to help. But I think there's also, you have to be really, really tight on what you're asking them and making it really light touch for them.
Yeah.
And letting them get back to you in whatever way feels right. But yeah, that I actually found that very helpful. So I suppose I do network.
I think there's no question that you do network. It's just maybe you are doing it without realizing and like without it being this kind of very active, deliberate strategy.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about my network, because it is all formed from basically the connections of people I have directly worked with. Like anyone who is actually someone I'd be like, yeah, I know them. They know someone who I have worked with directly. And I actually like most of the people I've worked with. It's very, very few places that I don't like my colleagues. So I think for me, it's like I probably am networking, but really I'm just catching up with people that I really like. And that is then sort of networking. Can I ask you a few questions just to kind of round us off for
Yeah.
this one? First question.
Mm.
What did you learn about networking in a like structured way from coaching? Did you get any tips on like how to do it authentically, how to set boundaries? And yes, do you have advice specifically on how to network with people who are much more senior than you?
Mm. So on the first one, interestingly, I like everything about coaching is connecting with people, right? So I wouldn't say that I've learned anything specifically about coaching, but about networking, sorry. But I would say that like you learn a huge amount about connecting with people. And I suppose some of the really sort of, if I was just off the top of my head coming up with the top tips, that would be asking open questions. You can have a roster of just like questions that you can reel off, like what's keeping you busy these days, or what does summer look like for you, or those kinds of things, just to kind of build a bit of rapport. I think rapport and building trust in a conversation is really important. And then the other thing I would say as part of like connection building is about how deeply you listen. And there was this, a bit like how I was saying earlier, if you're preloading a question in your brain, you've not been
You're not
listening.
Yeah.
So like level 1 is like, I'm listening to you talk and I'm preloading the question. So like I'm sort of paying attention to the content, but I'm not really. And then level 2 is like, okay, I'm really focusing on what you're saying. And oh, it's so fascinating that you've used this word a couple of times, and like what, that's really like that. If we were to kind of interpret that and draw a conclusion from that, perhaps you're feeling XYZ. And then level 3 is like paying full attention to like body language and like what people are not saying and what the gaps are saying and where the silences are and those sorts of things. And I think I was really surprised, and I think everyone will be really surprised to realize what level of listening you actually normally do, because it's very rare to actually be listening at level 3. Yeah. And like, the thing that I love about coaching is that like, if you have a good coach, you get to level 3 listening, and that becomes like a much deeper connection than level 1 listening, which is just totally superficial.
Yeah.
But could be like what you do in the pub with like a wider group of people. You're like, oh, how's the football? Oh yeah, football was really interesting. Anyway, what are you doing this weekend? Like, that kind of pitter patter conversation, not very interesting, not very deep, not very meaningful. So yeah, I'd say those. And then you asked a question about networking with people more senior. I used to be like really good at this, and then I think I just stopped bothering to do that, which is kind of lazy. But I would say that people who are more senior are just people.
So true.
And they'll be tired, they'll want a loo break, they're going to want a coffee. All of those are reference points, you can engage them in a conversation on. I don't think it has to be any more complicated than that. When people send me a message and they're like, I really want to be really good at strategy, I'm like, oh, fucking hell.
Quite a sweet message, to be fair.
It's really nice, but I'm also, I would happily just be, oh, let's go for a walk around the block.
Yeah.
And tell me what's going on with you. That's a way more interesting conversation to me than a kind of paternalistic, like teaching mode or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think? I guess in the startup world, there's like a combo of people who are more senior, but also perhaps let's expand the question to people who might have more kind of power or influence, like an investor or a VC, or, how do you go about that?
Unfortunately, that's a category of human that I don't like to talk to. No, is that true? It is true. That was a true statement. But the reason for that is that it's not that they're not nice people. Obviously, there's loads of really gregarious, like nice investors. I think that when you speak to an investor at an event, and you work in a startup, you're on record. You're immediately on record. How are you? Where do you work? As soon as you've said where you work, they will ask you questions about like performance. And that's fine, right? And sometimes it's interesting and nice. But I'm always on edge around that category of person. And yeah, they're not useful to me at the moment. When they were useful, I can switch it on. It takes a lot of energy. I can like perform, I can be selling, because even if you're talking to them and you're not deliberately selling, you actually are selling. You're selling and you're representing wherever you work. Whereas if I'm not needing that, like in my current role, I have no or very, very little contact with our investors or new investors. And so therefore I wouldn't put myself in a scenario where I had to talk to people with that kind of power, because I don't personally need their money, and I don't want to be on the record, right? The other people can be on the record, but I don't want to be on the record with them.
Yeah.
However, what I would say is the same comment that you made does apply. They are just people too. Like, they probably want to have an interesting conversation. So every now and again, when I am caught off guard and it's like, you're an investor, I usually try and like steer it actually away from my job. Because if we're talking about my job, it's transactional. To your point, we're not connecting, actually. They're doing a kind of information recce and I'm doing a panic, right? So, but I think if you make it about something else, your children, your dog, how you got there, what you thought of the event, what you thought was really interesting, you kind of, one, I guess, actually probably increase the chances of it being a meaningful connection, but two, you take it out of this very, very transactional plan. I guess like the truth is with all the people I know in my network that are much more senior than me, it's the same rules apply with me. I either like directly know them, like they were an investor in Alva, or I've worked with them, or they have been directly introduced to me by someone who has worked with me for a very specific reason. It's not like I don't have loads of like loose CEOs, just like hanging around. So there's usually, therefore, when I see them, something to talk about, because I talk about that mutual connection or that job or whatever. So yeah, I think that what you said is the most relevant thing, which is just to remember, like, most people feel the same as you and they're just human beings. And if you really want to have a conversation with them, probably most people, no matter how senior they are, won't mind.
Yeah. As you were talking, it reminded me that I'm totally getting this out of sync with our agenda today, but there is a book that like hasn't been mentioned yet. I sort of say it hesitantly, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I have read this one.
Okay. I haven't.
And like some of it's just sort of like icky American, like super transactional networking, but there were some really interesting things in there. One of the things I think is really important is just like remembering people's names and like details about them. That's like super important to just cultivating a connection. And another really important one is just not mispronouncing people's names. And I can't tell you how fucked off I get when I get an email that says, "Dear Ellel." Like, what? How did you conclude that was my first name? Like, what the fuck? So yeah, I think just always put your best foot forward on someone's name. I'm gonna have one last question for you before you wrap up.
Okay.
You touched on it earlier, but networking versus friendships. When does the line cross?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I would say most of the people, I probably have like 3 tiers of network. 4, maybe 3. Let's say 3. I have like my LinkedIn connections. Best case, we interact with each other's content. We send it. I don't really know you. I don't know you. But would I say you're in my network? Yeah, probably in it. I know your name. I might recognize it. Maybe I've met you once. Then I would say you have like the second tier, which is people I genuinely like, but that maybe I've worked with or I've met multiple times. And in another life, we'd be friends. But instead, we're just the occasional WhatsApp quite transactional in those WhatsApps, i.e., I've got a job. I was thinking, do you want it? And they'll say, no, not me, but someone else. And then they'll be like, how are you? And you'll have a nice little chat and it's pleasant. And maybe every now and again you go for a drink. And then there's like people I have met from work that I want to spend time with in my life.
Mm.
And that the most inner circle is for me completely intertwined with my actual friends. Like they are just friends. And I think, so therefore I would say the delineation is like, I would really want to spend my free time with those individuals. Whereas probably in the middle tier, I'd happily spend an 8 a.m. work breakfast, but I probably wouldn't spend my weekend.
Yeah, okay. Okay, I think that's actually a really nice framework. I'm not very good at cultivating the second or third tier. I'm like tier one only, which probably is leaving a few people.
Absolutely fine. You gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, who's gonna do the too long didn't listen today?
I'll do it.
You go for it.
I'm feeling brave. Too long didn't listen. Networking is actually about connections, and connecting with people is something everyone does, and introverts can do it. And it's okay if you hate all the big stuff, because there's lots of good stuff in the middle and in the smaller groups. And if all else fails, just treat LinkedIn like MSN.
Treat LinkedIn like MSN.
um, yeah, I think is that it? Would you add anything? What have I missed?
I think that's it. I think that's a good summary. I just think don't put too much pressure on yourself. It's probably easier to build a good network if you don't feel stressed about building a good network.
Just go cold water swimming with a nice person.
Yeah, go to an event, go Maverick. Anyway, that's probably not my best advice. I'm going to retract that one. That might get edited out. Right. Okay. Thanks for joining us today. As always, if something in today's episode has really resonated, spread the magic, share it with a friend, post it on your socials, or leave a rating or review on your platform of choice. This really makes a huge difference to us, and that's how the Coven grows. Until next time, bye.
Bye.